Hello everyone, welcome to the new session of Manure and Fertilizer Part 3. In this session, we are going to study about what is manure, what is bulky organic manure. Okay, so there are different types of manure, so that we are going to discuss. That is farmyard manure, sheep and goat manure, poultry manure, concentrated organic manures, and also oil cakes that is used as a manure. So all these different topics that we are going to cover up in this particular session. The first one, that is manure. So let us discuss what is manure. Manures are plants and animal waste that are used as a source of plant nutrients. So the waste of plant and the waste of animals are actually very useful for the plants. Okay, so when they get decomposed, okay, so they changes to manure and they are the source of plant nutrients, right? So manures are the source of plant nutrients and they are made by decomposition of plants and animal waste, right? They release nutrients after their decomposition. So decomposition is very important step to form the manure. So what happened, suppose there is a waste in the forest land, so there can be twigs of branches, there can be litter is that anything that is fallen from the tree and that get deposited at the ground. So leaf, some fruits, some flowers, okay, so all these things are present. So what happen when there is a moisture content is high in this litter, then what happen, some microbes start growing as the condition is very favorable for their growth, right? So some fungi, some bacteria, so microbes grows on these waste plants and animal waste. So that can be bacteria and fungi, right? So these bacteria and fungi changes this complex organic waste into simpler form by the process of decomposition, right? So the art of collecting and using waste from animals, human and vegetable sources for improving the crop productivity is as old as agriculture. So now we are making this manure. This occur in the forest or any natural land form, right? So this thing occur. But we can also make manure for our farmland. So this is a art of collecting the waste material that is from animal, human and vegetable source, that is the plant source, right? And we can change it into manure and that will be used for improving the crop productivity. And this art is as old as agriculture, right? So this making of manure is very old technique to improve the soil quality as it improve the crop production. Okay, manures are the organic materials derived from the animal, human, and the plant residues which contain plant nutrients in the complex organic form. So, all these waste material derived from the animals, right? Human and also the plant residues, right? So, these are the different form of organic material that we get and that decompose and changes to manure, so that which contain the plant nutrients in the complex organic form, and this particular is having the plant nutrients in a very complex organic form. So naturally occurring or the synthetic chemical containing the plant nutrients are called fertilizers. So there are different fertilizer. We have already completed two of this session that is totally based on the chemical fertilizer, right? But in this session we are going to more discuss about the manure. So there are the synthetic chemicals and there are also the naturally occurring manure. So both are used to enhance the soil quality so that we can have a great productivity from our crop plants, from our agriculture. Manure with low nutrient content per unit quality have longer residual effect beside improving the soil physical properties compared to fertilizer with high nutrient content. So this is very important thing, that manure are not having lot of nutrient, they are low content in nutrients, whereas the chemical fertilizer, they are having high nutrient content, right? But what is best then to use manure? Why we are using manure? Though it is having the low nutrient content, but it improves the soil physical properties. It improves the soil physical properties because this manure is there to hold more and more water. It increases the water holding capacity. It also increases the aeration to the roots, and these all things helps to improve the crop production. So manure are can also be grouped into the bulky organic manure and concentrated organic manure based on the concentration of the nutrient. So according to the concentration of the nutrient available in the manure can be grouped into bulky organic manure and concentrated organic manure. The first one is the bulky organic manure and the second is the concentrated organic manure. Major sources of manure are cattle shed waste dung, urine and slurry from biogas plants. So we are having cattle, okay, and their dung, that is the waste of their this cattle, can be used to make manure. Urine and also the slurry that is left from the biogas plant after the production of biogas, right? So that slurry can also be used for making manure. Human habitation waste, night soil, human urine, town refuse, sewage, sludge and sludge, all these are used for making manure. Poultry jitter, droppings of sheep and goat, okay, so whatever the waste from the sheep and goat and also the poultry farm. Slaughterhouse waste, bone meal, meat meal, blood meal, horn and hoof meal and fish waste can also be converted into manure. Now, bioproducts of agro-industrial oil cake. So we are having different industries like oil industry. So what happened when the oil seeds are used for taking out the oil, there is a leftover that is called as oil cakes. So the oil cakes, baggage and press mud, fruit and vegetable processing waste. So we are having the industries for fruits and vegetables. So lots of jam, jellies, sauce are also made from these fruits and vegetables. So lot of waste comes out from these industry, right? So those are the bioproducts of the agro industry. So those bioproducts can also be used for making manures. Crop waste, sugarcane trash, stubbles and other related materials. So we are having lot of crop waste also, right? Like sugarcane trash, stubbles and other related material that can also be used for making manures. Okay, next is the water hyacinth. This is a weed plant, that is an aquatic weed plant. Weeds and tank silt, okay, so there are some weed plant, there are the tank silt also. All these can get converted into manures. So water hyacinth, right? So this particular plant, aquatic plant, can be taken out, that is dried, and that can be used as a very good manure. So this is very, very important. Green manure crops and the green leaf manuring material. Sometimes the green manure crops can also be used for making manures. So there are the different forms that we can make manure. The waste is, now you can understand what are the waste that comes out, right, on the land form that can be converted into manures. So let us discuss about the first type of manure, that is bulky organic manure. Bulky organic manures contain small percentage of nutrients and they are applied in large quantities. So that is why this is called as bulky organic manure, right? So they are applied in the large quantities and they contain very small percentage of nutrients. Farmyard manure, FYM, compost and green manure are the most important and widely used bulky organic manure. So these are the three different form of bulky organic manure, that is FYM, farmyard manure, compost and green manure. So this is very important for the multiple choice question, that which of the following is not a bulky organic manure. So we are having farmyard manure, we are having compost and we are the green manure. So all these are the different bulky organic manure. So they can be prepared and also this used these basically this type of manures are used in the farmland, right? Use of bulky organic manures has several advantages. They supply plant nutrients, including the micronutrients. So they are having micronutrients and other important plant nutrient as well. They improve soil physical properties like structure, right? Water holding capacity, very, very important. This is a very important step, that they favor this bulky organic manure that favors the water holding capacity, right? So this improves the physical properties of soil, this improves the structure of the soil, this improves the water holding capacity, and this improvement of structure and water holding capacity comes under the important soil properties, that is the physical property. Okay, so they also increase the availability of nutrients to the plants. So this is some of the importance of bulky organic manures. They can also be used because the carbon dioxide released during the decomposition act as a CO2 fertilizer. Okay, plant parasitic nematodes and fungi are controlled to some extent by altering the balance of microorganism in the soil. So there are some plant parasitic nematodes and fungi, okay, that get controlled to some extent by altering the balance of microorganism in the soil. So this is also one of the important advantages of it. Next type is the farmyard manure. Farmyard manure refers to the decomposed mixture of dung and urine of farm animals along with litter and leftover material from the roughage or fodder fed to the cattle. So we are having farmyard manure. So what are the things that makes the farmyard manure? Okay, so we are having different cattles in our farmland. So this farm animal, they are having waste in the form of dung and urine, so that can be used to make the farmyard manure. Not only that, there are litter and the leftover material from the roughage or the fodder fed to the cattle. We feed our cattle with lot of food, so there are lot of waste. Okay, so that, and also the roughage, the fibers, okay, the leftover of the crops that contain lot of roughage, so that can also be used to make this farmyard manure. On an average, well decomposed farmyard manure contain 0.5% of nitrogen. So they contain a very less nutrients, right? So 0.5% of nitrogen, 0.2% of phosphorus pentaoxide, that is a source of phosphorus, and 0.5% of K2O, that is the potassium. So these are the three important nutrients, that is nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, right? So their percentage is 0.5, 0.2 and 0.5 respectively. The present method of preparing farmyard manure by the farmer is defective. Urine, which is wasted, contains 1% nitrogen and 1.35% of potassium. So that can be used to make the farmyard manure. Right? Nitrogen present in urine is mostly in the form of urea, which is subjected to the volatilization loss. So it get volatilized and there is a loss of this particular waste. So why to waste this waste? Actually this is a waste, but this is not a waste. This waste from the animal is not a waste, that can be used a very good manure, that is called as farmyard manure. Even during the storage, nutrients are lost due to the leaching and volatilization. So some of the nutrients that get lost because of the process of leaching. Okay, so the nutrient that leach out with the help of water. However, it is practically impossible to avoid losses altogether, but can be reduced by following improved method of preparation of farmyard manure, right? So it is very like practical thing that all the losses we cannot improve or we can reduce, but at some extent if we try, then we at the farm, by the preparation of this farmyard manure, we can reduce this loss. Okay, so trenches of size 6 meter to 7.5 meter length, 1.5 meter to 2 meter width and 1 meter deep are dug. So we can have a such size of trenches, right? And all available litter and refuse is mixed with the soil and spread in the shed so as to absorb urine. So with the help of the litter from the plant or the whatever the waste is there, right, we can mix that with the soil and we can dug out that particular soil and spread over the shed, all over the shed, that absorb urine. The next morning, the urine soaked refuse along with the dung is collected and placed in the trench. And again, we can collect all that soil that is having the mixture of litter, that is having the mixture of other wastage, right? And also, very important, urine that can get again get collected and can be put into this trench. A section of the trench from one end should be taken up for filling with the daily collection. So this process can be followed daily and we can have a stepwise the collection, right? The oldest one at the one end and the new this urine mix, soil and dung can be put at one end. So the oldest one that can be used to our farmland. When the section is filled up with the height of 45 centimeter to 60 centimeter above the ground level, the top of the heap is made into a dome and plastered with the cow dung earth slurry. Very important step. Then all this thing that get collected, that is collected in a heap, and with the help of cow dung earth slurry, we can make a plaster of it, the dome shape and plaster of it, right? This process is continued when the first trench is completely filled and second trench is prepared. So once this first trench is prepared or get filled, then we can make a dome shape heap and plaster it with the cow dung earth slurry. And in the next step, we are having the second trench already going on. So the manure becomes ready for use in about 4 to 5 months after the plastering. So that can be used for, right, making manure, and it takes 4 to 5 months. That plaster is covered that with the cow dung slurry for 4 to 5 months, and when you break it, then you get a manure. If urine is not collected in the bedding, it can be collected along with the washing of the cattle shed in a cemented pit, from which it is later added to the farmyard manure. So this can also an altered step, that if we are not making a bedding like things which we have just discussed in the previous slide, then we can do one thing. We wash our cattle shed, right? So that also contain this urine of them. So that washed water as well as the urine, that can be collected in a cement pit and later added to the farmyard manure pit. The chemical preservative can also be used to reduce the losses and enrich the farmyard manure. The commonly used chemicals are the gypsum and superphosphate. So these some of the chemicals preservative that can also be used to reduce the losses and enrich farmyard manure. So it increases the nutrients in the manure. Gypsum is spread in the cattle shed, which absorb urine and prevents volatilization, loss of urea present in the urine, and also add calcium and sulfur. So not only it is absorbing or reducing the volatilization of the urine, but also it is adding some nutrients like calcium and sulfur. Superphosphate also acts similarly in reducing the losses and also increases the phosphorus content. Partially rotten farmyard manure has to be applied 3 to 4 weeks before sowing, while well rotten manure can be applied immediately before sowing. So we are having two form of the partially rotten farmyard manure, and second is the well rotten farmyard manure. So well rotten farmyard manure can be applied immediately after sowing the plants, right? And this rotten farmyard manure has to be applied 3 or 4 weeks before the sowing, so that this rotten farmyard manure can get decomposed. It needs some time to get fully decomposed, so that is why it can be applied 3 to 4 weeks earlier. Generally 10 to 20th is applied, but more than 20th is applied to fodder grasses and vegetables. In such cases, farmyard manure should be applied at least 15 days in advance to avoid immobilization of nitrogen. The existing practice of leaving manure in a small heaps scattered in the field for a very long period leads to the loss of nutrients. So this should be avoided, that keeping manure in a small heaps in the farmland that get scattered in the field, and there is a loss of nutrients from them. So these losses can be reduced by spreading the manure and incorporating by plowing immediately after application. So these losses can be reduced by spreading. We should not collect in a heap. We should spread the manure and incorporating by the plowing immediately after the application, right? So the vegetable crops like the potato, tomato, sweet potato, carrot, radish, onion, etc. respond well to the farmyard manure. Okay, so the other responsive crops such as sugarcane, rice, napier grass, and orchard crops like oranges, banana, mango, and the plantation crop like coconut. So for these farmyard manure is great importance. The entire amount of nutrient present in the farmyard manure is not available immediately. Okay, so all the nutrient that is available in the farmyard, it is not available immediately. About 30% of the nitrogen, 60 to 70% of the phosphorus, and 70% of the potassium are available to the first crop. Okay, so we are having the different, you can say a form of the manure, the one which can be prepared from the waste of sheep and goat manure. So that is called as sheep and goat manure. The droppings of sheep and goat contain higher nutrients than the farmyard manure and compost. So it is having lot of nutrients, and it is a good quality manure that if we compare it with the farmyard manure and compost. Okay, so on an average, the manure contain 3% nitrogen, 1% of phosphorus pentaoxide, that is a source of phosphorus, and 2% of potassium oxide, that is a source of potassium. So basically this is the three important nutrients, so their percentage is given here. In sheep and goat manure, it is applied in the field in two ways. So the sweeping of sheep or goat sheds are placed in pits for decomposition and it is applied later to the field. So whatever the sweeping of sheep and goat sheds, we can make a pit and that get collected. After the decomposition, that can be used in the field. So the nutrient present in the urine or waste in this method. The second method in the sheep penning, wherein the sheep and goats are kept overnight in the field and urine and the fecal matter added to the soil incorporated to a shallow depth by working blade harrow or the cultivator or the cultivator. So we can have, with the help of cultivator and blade harrow, we can make a trench like things, and we for a night we can keep our sheep or goat over there. So whatever the droppings of these sheep and goat, whatever the urine and the fecal matter of these animals that are present in that trench only, right? So that can be incorporated into the soil and can convert it into manure. Poultry manure, the excreta of birds ferment very quickly, right? So it get ferment very quickly, the excreta of birds. It left exposed, 50% of its nitrogen is lost within 30 days. So this is a great loss. If we are exposed this excreta, that is from the poultry farm, 50% of the nitrogen is lost. So the poultry manure contain higher nitrogen and the phosphorus compared to the other bulky organic manure. So this is a rich nutrient that is present in the manure, that is poultry manure. The average nutrient content is 3.03% of nitrogen, 2.63% of phosphorus and 1.4% of potassium. Concentrated organic manure. Concentrated organic manure have high nutrient content than the bulky organic manure. So if we compare with the bulky, so we are having the two major class of the manure, that is bulky organic manure and concentrated organic manure. Bulky organic manure is having lot of you can say less amount of nutrient, but a bulk of organic matter is there, that is why it got its name bulky organic manure. But this concentrated organic manure is a rich in nutrient. The important concentrated organic manures are oil cakes, blood meal, fish manure, etc. So this can also be used as they contain lot of nutrients. So these are also known as organic nitrogen fertilizer, oil cakes, blood meal, fish manure. So these wastes are the source of concentrated organic manure, and they are also known as organic nitrogen fertilizer. Before their organic nitrogen is used by the crops, it is converted through the bacterial action into the readily usable ammonical nitrogen and the nitrate nitrogen. So it is having a lot of nitrogen in that, but it cannot be like added to the soil immediately and we can crop over there. No. First, it should be there is a treatment for the bacterial action, right? So once it get decomposed, then that nitrogen that is present, lot of nitrogen that is present in this concentrated organic manure becomes a part of the soil, and that is easily available to the crop plants. So these organic fertilizers are therefore relatively slow acting, but they supply available nitrogen for a longer period, right? So this is relatively slow because its decomposition take time. Why it is called slow acting? Because its decomposition need time. And once it fully get decomposed, so that available nitrogen for longer period. Oil cakes. After oil is extracted from the oil seed, the remaining solid portion is dried as a cake, which can be used as manure. So, this particular oil cake can be used as manure. The oil cakes are of two types: edible oil cakes, which can be safely fed to the livestock. Example, groundnut cake, coconut cake, right? And non-edible oil cakes which are not fit for feeding livestock, that is the castor cake, neem cake, mahua cake. So all these oil seed cake can be used for making the manure and fertilizer. Both edible and non-edible oil cakes can be used as the manure. However, edible oil cakes are fed to the cattle and non-edible oil cakes are used as manure. So this edible oil cakes can be used to feed our cattle, right? And the one which is non-edible oil cakes, so that can be used for making manure. Nutrient present in oil cakes after mineralization are made available to the crop 7 to 10 days after its application. So these are the different oil cakes: Jatropha oil cakes, Pontgamia oil cakes, cottonseed oil cakes. Oil cakes need to be well powdered before application for even distribution and quicker decomposition. So it should be powdered before it get mixed with the soil, right? So that it can easily get decomposed, and also it can be spread evenly to the whole cropland. So here are some of the oil cakes, right? So non-edible oil cakes that contain nitrogen, phosphorus pentoxide and potassium. Castor oil cakes 4.3 nitrogen and 1.8 phosphorus and 1.3 potassium. Cottonseed oil cakes 3.9, 1.8 and 1.6. Karanj cake 3.9 nitrogen, 0.9 phosphorus pentoxide and potassium oxide in 1.2 percentage. Mahua cake 2.5 nitrogen, 0.8 phosphorus and 1.2 potassium. Safflower cake, that is 4.9 nitrogen, 1.4 phosphorus and 1.2 of potassium. Okay, so here are some other edible oil cakes. Okay, so they are also having the average nutrient content of the oil cakes, so that we can discuss here the edible oil cakes that also contain nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. Coconut cake that contain 3% of nitrogen, 1.9% of phosphorus and 1.8 that is potassium. Cottonseed cake, that is 6.4, 2.9 and 2.2 respectively. Ground nut cake 7.3 nitrogen, this is quite high, and 1.5 phosphorus and 1.3 potassium. Linseed cake 4.9 nitrogen, 1.4 phosphorus and 1.3 potassium. Niger cake 4.4 nitrogen, 1.8 phosphorus and 1.3 potassium. Rapeseed cake 5.2 nitrogen, 1.8 phosphorus and 1.2 potassium. Safflower cake that is decorticated, that is 7.9, very high nitrogen content, 2.2 phosphorus and 1.9 potassium. Sesame cake 6.2, phosphorus 2 and 1.2 that is potassium. So other concentrated organic manure are blood meal. When dried and powdered can be used as manure. The meat of the dead animals is dried and converted into meal, which is a good source of nitrogen. So the meat of the dead animals, the blood meal, that can dried and that can be used as that get converted into manure. Average nutrient content of animal based on the concentrated organic manure is given as follows. So here we are having some of the average nutrient content of animal based on the concentrated organic manure are horn and hoof meal, raw bone meal and crushed bone meal. So here we are having some organic manure, that is having the blood meal. It contains 10 to 12 percentage of nitrogen, 1.2 percentage of phosphorus, and 1 percentage of potassium. Meat meal 10.5, having a very high content of nitrogen, that is 10.5, 2.5 phosphorus, and 0.5 potassium. Fish meal 4 to 10% nitrogen, 3 to 9% phosphorus, and 0.3 to 1.5% of potassium. Horn and hoof meal, that contain only nitrogen, and that is very high, 13. Raw bone meal 3 to 4% of nitrogen, 20 to 25% of phosphorus. This raw bone meal, right? And no content potassium. So steamed bone meal 1.2% of nitrogen and 25 to 30% of phosphorus. So this is all about this session. So with this session, we have completed our manure and fertilizer. Thank you very much.